Sir, please stay with me. Don't close your eyes." The sound of rain hit the pavement like 1,000 broken promises. A young black waitress, Tiana Brooks, knelt in the middle of a dark, empty street, her trembling hands pressed against the chest of a man lying unconscious in the gutter. He was dressed in a soaked, expensive gray suit, a man clearly from another world. His face was pale, his breathing shallow. "Somebody call 911. She screamed, but there was no one. The diner where she worked had already closed. It was past midnight. Her phone slipped from her shaking hands, but she managed to dial emergency services again. "Please hurry," she cried. "He's not moving." The dispatcher's calm voice came through. "Ma'am, help is on the way. Can you tell me if he's breathing?" I think he's trying," she sobbed, tilting his head back the way she remembered from first aid videos she'd watched years ago. The rain poured harder. She pulled off her apron, pressing it over a deep cut on his arm. "You're not dying on me, mister. Not tonight." His eyelids fluttered. For a second his lips moved. "Thank you," he whispered weakly. She leaned closer. "You're gonna be fine, okay? Just hang on." Moments later, flashing red lights filled the street. Paramedics rushed in, taking over as she stumbled back, drenched and shaking. One of them turned to her. "You saved his life, ma'am. If you hadn't stopped the bleeding, he wouldn't have made it." Tiana just nodded, her heart still racing. "I just couldn't leave him there." As they loaded the man into the ambulance, she caught a glimpse of his watch. Gold, engraved with initials, ELH. She didn't know it yet, but those letters would soon turn her life upside down. The next morning, she walked into the diner exhausted, her shoes still damp. The smell of coffee and bacon filled the air. Her coworker, Maya, raised an eyebrow. "Girl, you look like you fought a hurricane." Tiana managed a weak laugh. "Kinda did. Found some guy passed out in the street last night. Rich looking. Got him to the hospital." Maya whistled. "And you didn't even get his name." "You really are the Good Samaritan," Tiana shrugged. "Didn't do it for that. Just couldn't walk away." Her boss, Mr. Collins, barked from behind the counter. "Less talk, more work. The breakfast rush is coming." Tiana sighed, tying her apron tighter. It was always the same, long shifts, low pay, and rude customers. But she kept going. For her little brother, Malik, for the rent due next week, for the dream she still dared to hold, nursing school. 2 days later, the bell over the diner door chimed. Tiana didn't look up right away. "Coffee's fresh, grab a seat anywhere," she called, wiping the counter. But when she finally turned, her breath caught. It was him, the man from the street. Clean suit, polished shoes, and a presence that made the room go still. He looked around the diner, eyes locking on her. "Tiana Brooks?" Her heart skipped. "Yes, that's me." He walked closer, holding out a small folded card. "You saved my life." She blinked, unsure how to respond. I just did what anyone would do." He smiled faintly. "No, you did what no one else did." He handed her the card. "My name's Ethan Lawrence Hale. Maybe you've heard of me." Maya gasped softly behind the counter. Everyone in the city knew that name. The billionaire investor. The man who owned half the skyline. Tiana stared, speechless. "I didn't even know who you were." Ethan nodded slowly. "That's what makes what you did rare." He looked around the small worn diner, the flickering lights, the cracked floor tiles, then back at her. "You saved me, Miss Brooks. Now let me return the favor." Tiana frowned, unsure whether to laugh or run. "What do you mean?" He smiled, calm, mysterious. "Let's just say your life's about to change." The diner went silent. Even the sound of frying bacon seemed to pause. Ethan Hale, the billionaire whose name was printed on magazines and skyscrapers, stood in the middle of that tiny, grease-stained diner looking completely out of place. Tiana blinked, still unsure she wasn't dreaming. You're that Ethan Hale." He smiled faintly. "I suppose I am." Mr. Collins, her boss, rushed forward, nearly tripping over himself. "Mr. Hale, sir, welcome. I didn't know you'd be visiting our humble place. Please, take a seat. Anything on the house?" Ethan nodded politely but kept his eyes on Tiana. Actually, I'm here for her. Mr. Collins blinked. For her? He shot Tiana a sharp look. What did you do? Tiana hesitated. Nothing. Ethan interrupted softly. She saved my life. A stunned silence fell over the diner. Maya's jaw dropped. Mr. Collins blinked like he couldn't process the words. Then Ethan said, Miss Brooks, I'd like you to come with me. I owe you something. Tiana's eyes widened. Excuse me? I can't just leave. I have a shift. Ethan chuckled lightly, a sound that somehow made the air feel different. I think your boss can spare you for one morning. Mr. Collins, now smiling greedily, nodded. Of course, of course. Go ahead, Tiana, make the man's day. Tiana frowned. This isn't funny, Mr. Collins. It's fine, Ethan said quietly. I promise you, Miss Brooks, no trouble. Just gratitude. Minutes later, she found herself sitting in the back of a sleek black car. Leather seats, quiet engine, tinted windows. The kind of car she'd only seen on TV. She sat stiffly, clutching her purse, still in her diner uniform. The driver glanced at her through the mirror, but Ethan spoke first. You're wondering what this is all about? Tiana sighed. You think? He smiled faintly. You saved my life that night. I don't remember much after I collapsed, but the doctors told me, if you hadn't stopped the bleeding, I would have died. She looked down. I just did what I was supposed to do. He nodded. Maybe, but most people would have kept walking. And I know. I've met a lot of people who only look when it benefits them. Tiana folded her arms. And now you feel guilty about that, so you're going to give me a thank you check or something? Ethan chuckled softly. Not exactly. The car pulled up in front of a tall glass tower, the Hale International headquarters. The doors opened, revealing a marble lobby that looked like another world. Tiana's jaw dropped. This is where you work? This, Ethan said with a hint of irony, is where I live. He led her inside. Everyone they passed stopped and stared. Men in suits, women in designer dresses, all whispering. A security guard frowned at Tiana's uniform but froze when Ethan gave a subtle nod. Inside his office, a panoramic view of the city skyline, Tiana stood awkwardly by the door. Ethan turned to her. You look uncomfortable. She gave a nervous laugh. Because I am. I don't belong here. He studied her face for a long moment. You might be surprised how wrong you are. Then he walked to his desk and handed her an envelope. Inside is a scholarship form. Fully paid. Any university, any major. No debt, no conditions. Tiana's eyes widened. What? No, I can't accept that. Yes, you can, Ethan said gently. Because I wasn't meant to survive that night. But I did. And I've been thinking since then that maybe that happened for a reason. She stared at him, speechless. You don't even know me, he smiled. Then let's change that. For a long moment, neither spoke. The room was quiet, except for the hum of the city below. Finally, Tiana whispered, Why me? Ethan's voice softened. Because you were the only one who stopped. When Tiana stepped into Hale Tower again the next morning, she felt like she'd walked into another planet. Men in tailored suits moved like clockwork. Women in heels clicked across marble floors, their voices polished and precise. Everyone looked perfect. Everyone belonged. Except her. The receptionist's eyes darted to her simple dress and cheap shoes. Can I help you, miss? She asked, tone sharp, practiced. Yes, Tiana said nervously. Mr. Hale asked me to come. The receptionist's smile tightened. Mr. Hale sees a lot of people. Do you have an appointment? Before Tiana could answer, a voice echoed from the elevator. She's with me. Ethan Hale stepped out in a charcoal suit, eyes calm but commanding. The receptionist's face drained of color. Of course, Mr. Hale, she stammered. Ethan nodded and gestured for Tiana to follow. Ignore them, he said softly. They think success gives them the right to judge. Tiana kept her eyes down. They're not wrong about me not belonging here. He smiled. I don't belong here half the time either. His office was filled with sunlight, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. On his desk sat 2 mugs of coffee, "I thought you might like one," he said. "2 sugars, right?" She blinked. "How did you—" I asked the nurse at the hospital. "You gave me yours when I couldn't drink mine." Tiana looked at the cup, surprised by how much that tiny gesture mattered to him. "You remembered that?" "I remember everything that felt real," he said quietly. As they talked, she learned things she hadn't expected. Ethan wasn't just rich, he was lonely. He'd built empires, but lost everyone along the way. His parents had died young. His fiancée had left when his work consumed him. And though the world admired him, nobody knew him. Tiana listened quietly, then said softly, "Maybe you should stop trying to impress the world and start trying to live in it." He chuckled. "You don't hold back, do you?" "I spent my whole life watching people talk big and do small," she said. "You're lucky. You've got a chance to do both." But not everyone shared Ethan's gratitude. When they walked into the boardroom later that day, the air turned colder. A group of executives in suits turned to stare at Tiana like she'd walked into a royal meeting in sneakers. "Mr. Hale," one of them said stiffly, "is there a reason you brought—" "Company." Ethan's jaw tightened. "This is Miss Brooks. She saved my life." A few muttered half-smiles. One man whispered, not quietly enough, "You'd think the man could afford better company." Tiana's chest tightened. She looked down, pretending she hadn't heard, but Ethan had. His voice turned sharp. "What was that, Mr. Carver?" Carver coughed. "Nothing, sir. Just surprised to see a new face, that's all." Ethan leaned forward. "Then get used to it. Because this new face reminds me what humanity looks like. Something some of you seem to have forgotten." The room went dead silent. Tiana wanted to disappear. But when she glanced up, Ethan was already looking at her, his expression soft again. "Come on," he said quietly. "You don't need to breathe their air any longer than necessary." As they walked out, she whispered, "You didn't have to do that." He stopped and turned to her. "Yes, I did. People like that forget what it means to be grateful." "You reminded me," she smiled faintly. "You keep saying that." "I didn't save you for thanks." Ethan met her eyes. "Maybe not. But you're saving me again. In ways you don't even see." That night, as Tiana rode the bus home, she looked out the window, the city lights reflecting in her tired eyes. She couldn't explain it, but for the first time, she felt seen. Yet, deep inside, a voice whispered, "People like him don't stay in your world for long." By the end of the week, everyone in the building knew her name, Tiana Brooks, the waitress who saved a billionaire, the charity case, the rumor that everyone wanted to twist. It started with a photo. Someone had snapped a picture of her walking beside Ethan in the glass hallway. The caption under it read, "From waitress to billionaire's new obsession." By noon, it was everywhere. At the diner, Maya held up her phone. "Girl, you're trending." Tiana snatched the phone from her. "What?" Her face stared back from gossip blogs, her name tangled in lies. "She saved his life," one article said, "and now he's paying her back in ways that have everyone talking." Tiana's chest tightened. "This isn't true. None of this is true." Maya sighed. "You know how people are. They don't care what's true, just what's interesting." Before Tiana could respond, the diner phone rang. Mr. Collins answered, then called out, "Brooks, some reporter asking for you. Should I tell him you're on break or selling secrets?" Laughter rippled across the counter. Tiana's hands shook. She tore off her apron and stormed out the back door, the cold air stinging her face. At Hale Tower, things weren't much better. Ethan sat at his desk, his assistant reading headlines aloud. Ethan Hale's mystery woman. Waitress wins billionaire's heart. Cinderella or con artist? He slammed the tablet shut. "Who leaked this?" "No idea, sir," the assistant said nervously. "But it's spreading fast. The board's concerned." "Concerned?" Ethan snapped. "About what? That I was saved by a good person? They say she's—" "Not good for your image," the assistant murmured. Ethan's voice dropped cold. "Then maybe my image is what's broken." He drove to the diner that evening, ignoring the cameras flashing outside his building. Tiana was sitting on the curb out back, her head in her hands. He got out quietly, standing beside her. "Rough day?" She didn't look up. "If this is what rich people's lives are like, you can keep it." Ethan smiled faintly. "Welcome to my world. All power, no peace." She looked up then, her eyes red from tears. "They're saying horrible things about me. About you, I know, and you're just calm about it." "No," he said softly. "I'm furious. But I've learned. When you do something good, someone will always try to twist it, especially when you don't fit the story they want to tell." Tiana shook her head. "They don't even know me." Ethan crouched down to meet her eyes. "Then show them who you are." A week later, Ethan invited her to a charity gala, the biggest event of the year. She almost said no, but then she remembered his words. "Show them who you are." When she walked into the ballroom, every head turned. Tiana wore a simple, elegant black dress borrowed from a friend at Safe Haven, her hair natural, her presence calm but radiant. Whispers started immediately. "Is that her? She looks different in person." "She's actually beautiful." Ethan met her near the entrance, smiling. "You clean up well, Miss Brooks," she smirked. "You don't look too bad yourself, Mr. Hale." They walked together through the crowd, but halfway across the room, one voice cut through the noise. "She doesn't belong here." The words came from one of Ethan's investors, an older man in a white tuxedo. "You can take her out of the diner, but you can't take the diner out of her." The room went still. Tiana froze. For a moment, the old fear came back, the feeling of being less than. But then Ethan spoke, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You're right," he said calmly. "You can't take the diner out of her, because that's where she learned what real decency looks like, something money clearly hasn't taught you." The investor's smile faded. The crowd murmured, and for the first time Tiana stood tall. She whispered, "You didn't have to defend me." He looked at her, eyes warm. "Yes, I did, because the only thing richer than my bank account tonight is your heart." The next morning, headlines exploded again. Only this time, they were crueler than ever. Billionaire Hale seen defending Waitress at gala. Charity or romance? The city wants answers. Hale, empire under fire for poor public image. Tiana stared at her phone in disbelief. Every picture, every word twisted what happened. The photo of Ethan defending her had gone viral. His hand on her arm, her eyes filled with emotion, captioned with lies. She tried to turn it off, but the calls kept coming. Her old landlord, reporters, even strangers messaging her online. "Guess you found a rich man, huh?" One text read. Another said, "Should have stayed in your lane." She threw the phone aside and buried her face in her hands. Later that day, she went to see Ethan at his office. She was done with the rumors, done with pity, but when she arrived, something felt wrong. His assistant wouldn't meet her eyes. "I'm sorry, Miss Brooks," she said carefully. "Mr. Hale's in a meeting. With the board." "Then I'll wait," Tiana said. An hour passed, then another. Finally, the glass doors opened. Ethan stepped out, but his expression wasn't the warm one she knew. It was cold, controlled. "Ethan," she said softly. He exhaled. "Tiana, we need to talk." They walked into his office. The view of the city gleamed behind him like glass walls closing in. He turned toward her. "The board thinks our connection has become problematic," Tiana frowned. "Problematic?" "They say it's costing the company credibility. Investors are pulling out. They want me to distance myself from you." Tiana stared, disbelief flooding her. "So what, Ethan? You're just going to listen to them?" He hesitated. "It's not that simple." "Yes, it is," she said firmly. "You told me to show them who I am. And I did. But now you're afraid to show them who you are." Her voice cracked, but she didn't stop. "You said kindness mattered more than image. You said I saved you." Ethan's face tightened. "You did. But I have responsibilities. Thousands of employees depend on this company." Her eyes filled with tears. "Then maybe they deserve a better man leading it." For a moment, silence filled the room. Then she whispered, You were different, Ethan. I believed that. He looked away. So did I. Tiana turned and walked toward the door, her shoulders trembling. Just before she stepped out, she said softly, I didn't save you for a thank you, or a scholarship, or a fancy building. I saved you because it was the right thing to do. I thought maybe that would mean something to you. Her voice broke. Guess I was wrong. The door closed behind her and Ethan stood there, motionless, surrounded by everything money could buy and nothing he actually wanted. That night, he sat alone in his penthouse, staring out at the skyline. On the table beside him lay the newspaper, Tiana's picture staring back at him with cruel words beneath it. He ran a hand through his hair, guilt pressing against his chest. You're such a coward, he muttered to himself. His phone buzzed. It was an alert from his charity foundation. The message read, Scholarship Fund. Tiana Brooks has withdrawn her application. He closed his eyes. Meanwhile, across town, Tiana packed her small suitcase. She couldn't stay here anymore. The city that once ignored her now whispered her name for all the wrong reasons. She looked around the tiny apartment one last time, the one she'd fought so hard to keep. Maybe kindness doesn't belong in this world, she whispered. But as she turned off the light, her phone buzzed. One new message. It wasn't from Ethan, it was from a stranger. Hi, Miss Brooks. My daughter saw your story. She says you're her hero. Thank you for reminding us that good people still exist. Tiana's tears fell silently. For the first time that day, she smiled through them. A month passed. Winter crept in, cold and quiet. The city moved on like it always did. But Ethan Hale didn't. He hadn't seen Tiana since that day. The day he chose fear over gratitude, pride over truth. The day he broke the only real connection he'd ever had. Every morning he tried to bury himself in work. But every night, the memory of her words echoed in his mind. I saved you because it was the right thing to do. And for the first time, he realized. She wasn't talking about his life. She was talking about his soul. One evening, Ethan sat alone in his office. The city lights shimmered below, mocking him with their brightness. His assistant entered, holding a folder. Sir, you should see this. Inside were dozens of letters, emails, handwritten notes, messages from people all over the country. Thank you for helping that waitress. She reminded us that good still exists. Your company should be proud of her, not ashamed. Ethan flipped through them, eyes widening. Where did these come from? Your foundation, the assistant said. After the story went public, people started donating. The fund in her name, my what? The Tiana Brooks Hope Scholarship. You started it, remember? It went viral again. Everyone's talking about it, but this time, in a good way. Ethan stood abruptly. Who's managing it? Your team. But the person who's been leading the program is her. Ethan froze. Tiana? The assistant nodded. She came back 2 weeks ago. Not to see you. To work for the kids who applied. Ethan's heart slammed against his chest. That night, he drove straight to the foundation building, the one he'd built years ago but never really stepped foot in. Through the glass doors, he saw her, Tiana, standing in front of a group of students, helping them fill out forms, laughing softly. Her energy filled the room. He watched silently for a moment. No spotlight, no cameras. Just her, doing what she'd always done, helping. When she finally noticed him, her expression froze. The students turned to look as he approached. Can I talk to you? He asked quietly. She hesitated, then nodded. Outside, they stood under the glow of the streetlights, their breath visible in the cold air. Ethan spoke first. I was wrong. Tiana folded her arms. About what? The rumors? Or me? About everything, he said. I let fear decide who I was. I let people tell me what mattered, and I lost the only person who showed me what actually does. She stayed quiet. I thought I had power, he continued, voice cracking. But I had nothing, because power without heart is empty. He took a deep breath. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I want to make things right. Tiana's eyes softened, but her tone stayed calm. You can't fix people, Ethan, not with money, not even with guilt. I know, he said gently. But maybe I can start by learning from one. He reached into his coat and handed her a paper. It was a new document. Signed, sealed, Walker Brooks Foundation for Opportunity. Dedicated to helping single mothers and underprivileged students achieve their dreams. Her hands trembled. You named it after me? He smiled faintly. After the woman who taught me that saving a life isn't about pulling someone out of danger, it's about giving them hope to stand again. Tiana blinked back tears. You didn't have to do this. I did, he said, because you saved me again, without even trying. The next week, they stood side by side at the Foundation's public launch. Reporters filled the room, cameras flashing. Ethan took the stage, his voice steady. I've built skyscrapers, companies, and wealth, he said. But this, he gestured toward Tiana. This is the most valuable thing I've ever been part of. She saved my life, and in doing so, she reminded me that no one is too poor to be kind, and no one is too rich to be humble. The audience erupted in applause. Tiana's eyes filled as she smiled, not with pride, but peace. Later that evening, as they stood by the window watching the city glow, Ethan whispered, So, friends? Tiana smiled. Friends? Maybe more. Someday, he laughed quietly. Someday's enough. They stood together in silence, two souls from different worlds, finally meeting in the only one that mattered. The world of grace. Moral. True wealth isn't measured in money. It's measured in moments of kindness. Sometimes, the poorest heart gives the richest gift of all, humanity.